Does destiny really decide everything in your life? Or do your choices still matter more than you think? When people say Shiva loves everyone, what does that actually mean? Fact, belief, or human feeling? And if you say you love Shiva, is that love shown only in prayer or also in how you live every day? These questions are not asked to create fear or blind belief. They are asked because many people quietly struggle with them. Across history, people have spoken about Shiva in many ways. Some see Shiva as a personal god, some as a symbol of awareness, balance, and change. Ancient Indian philosophy discusses ideas like karma, responsibility, and impermanence, but it does not give simple answers that remove all doubt. That is an important fact to remember. Where ideas differ, we will clearly say so. In daily life, people often connect destiny with success or failure, love with reward, and faith with protection. But psychology shows that humans also look for meaning when life feels unfair. This does not make people weak. It makes them human. The problem begins when destiny becomes an excuse to stop trying, or when love becomes a demand for comfort rather than understanding. Is suffering always a punishment, or can it be a process of learning? Is silence a rejection, or space for growth? These are open questions, and thoughtful traditions admit they are not easy. This video does not promise miracles or secret knowledge. It explores ideas using real-life examples, basic philosophy, and simple reasoning that anyone can follow. Facts will be shared where they are supported, and interpretations will be clearly marked as interpretations. Nothing here asks you to believe blindly. It asks you to think calmly. If you stay until the end, you may not get final answers, but you may gain clearer questions, and that often matters more. If you value honest discussion like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can continue exploring these ideas together. Many people grow up hearing that destiny is already written and that nothing they do can change it. This idea often gets connected to Shiva, as if Shiva decides every success, every failure, and every pain in advance. But when we look carefully at ancient Indian philosophy, this belief becomes more complex. Classical texts speak about karma, which simply means action. Karma is not described as fate carved in stone, but as a process where actions, intentions, and choices shape future outcomes over time. This is a fact that can be verified in widely studied sources like the Bhagavad Gita and early Upanishadic thought. However, how people interpret karma in daily life often goes beyond what these texts clearly state. In real life, the belief in fixed destiny often appears during fear. When exams fail, businesses collapse, or relationships end, people say, "It was written." Psychology helps explain this. Research on human behavior shows that when situations feel out of control, people prefer simple explanations because they reduce anxiety. Saying destiny decided everything can feel comforting. But does comfort always lead to growth? If destiny alone decides outcomes, why do effort, planning, and learning still change results so often? Consider two students with the same background and similar challenges. One studies regularly and asks for help when confused. The other gives up early, believing effort is useless. Their results are rarely the same. This does not mean effort guarantees success. Facts show that effort does not remove all limits, but it strongly influences direction. Ancient philosophy also supports this balance. Conditions matter, but response matters too. Destiny, in this view, is not a punishment system or a reward system. It is more like a flow shaped by many causes, some past and some present. Here is where opinion must be clearly separated from fact. It is a fact that texts discuss karma and human effort together. It is an interpretation to say that Shiva personally writes each event of your life. Many scholars agree that Shiva is often described symbolically as awareness, balance, and transformation, rather than as a manager of individual outcomes. If that is true, then blaming destiny may hide a deeper question. What choices are still in your hands right now? If destiny were truly fixed, why would learning exist at all? Why would mistakes teach us anything? And if effort has no meaning, why does responsibility keep returning to our lives again and again? These questions are not answered here, but they invite you to look deeper, and that curiosity will guide the next part of this journey. Many people quietly believe that Shiva loves some people more than others. When life goes well, they feel chosen. When life becomes hard, they feel ignored. This belief is very common, but it is important to slow down and separate facts from feelings. In classical Hindu philosophy, Shiva is not described as a being who shows emotional favoritism the way humans do. Texts and commentaries often present Shiva as a symbol of balance, awareness, and order in the universe. This is a verifiable idea found across many schools of Indian thought. However, how people emotionally understand divine love is often shaped more by human experience than by clear textual claims. From a psychological view, humans naturally look for patterns. When something good happens after prayer, it feels like proof of being loved. When the same prayer is followed by loss or pain, it feels like rejection. This is called confirmation bias, a well-studied concept in psychology where people remember events that support their belief and ignore those that do not. This does not mean faith is wrong, but it shows how the mind works. If two people pray with equal sincerity and only one gets the result they want, does that really prove divine preference? Or does it reveal how outcomes depend on many factors we cannot see? There is also a strong emotional need behind this belief. Feeling specially loved can give comfort during uncertainty. But comfort and truth are not always the same. Ancient philosophy often avoids the idea of a God who rewards loyalty and punishes others emotionally. Instead, it focuses on order, cause and effect, and responsibility. Saying, "Shiva loves me more," may feel good, but it raises difficult questions. If love is selective, what does that say about fairness? And if love is constant, why do experiences differ so much? Here we must clearly state what is interpretation. It is an interpretation to say Shiva's love works like human affection. It is more supported by philosophy to say Shiva represents a steady principle that does not change based on personal success or failure. This view does not remove meaning from life. It shifts it inward. Instead of asking, "Why was I not chosen?" a deeper question appears. What can I learn from what happened? If love were only proven by comfort, would growth ever happen? And if fairness meant equal results, would effort matter at all? These questions stay open, pulling us forward and preparing us to examine our own role more closely in the next chapter. Many people say they love Shiva, but it is worth asking what that love really means in daily life. For some, love appears mainly during trouble, when illness comes, when money feels uncertain, or when fear grows. Prayer becomes urgent. When life feels stable again, that connection slowly fades. This pattern is not rare, and it does not make anyone bad. It simply shows how human nature works. But ancient philosophy often asks a deeper question. Is devotion only about asking for protection, or is it also about how one lives? Across many Indian philosophical traditions, ethical living is given great importance. Truthfulness, self-control, and responsibility are described as foundations of a meaningful life. This is a verifiable idea found in texts that discuss dharma, or right conduct. Yet in everyday practice, people sometimes replace these values with habit-based prayer. They chant words daily, but continue harmful habits, avoid responsibility, or ignore the impact of their actions on others. This creates a gap between belief and behavior. Can love exist only in words, or must it appear in action? Modern psychology also supports this question. Studies on behavior change show that repeated actions shape character more than intentions alone. A person may sincerely believe in spiritual values, but without discipline, those values remain ideas rather than lived reality. This does not mean prayer is useless. It means prayer without action has limits. If someone prays for health but refuses basic care, or prays for peace while feeding anger daily, what result should they expect? Here we must be clear about fact and opinion. It is a fact that ethical action and discipline are emphasized across philosophical systems. It is an opinion to say that Shiva expects moral behavior in a personal sense. Many thinkers interpret Shiva symbolically as a reminder of awareness and balance. From this view, loving Shiva means respecting truth, limits, and responsibility, even when it feels uncomfortable. Comfort is easy to love. Discipline is not. But which one leads to growth? If love only seeks safety, does it become dependency? And if faith avoids responsibility, does it weaken strength instead of building it? These questions do not accuse, they invite reflection. When belief supports action, it becomes powerful. When belief replaces action, it becomes an escape. As we move forward, another question waits quietly. What happens when life removes comfort completely and only understanding remains? When suffering enters life, many people immediately ask whether Shiva is angry with them. This idea is very common, but it is important to pause and look at it carefully. From a factual point of view, it appears across cultures, beliefs, and even among people who follow no religion at all. Illness, loss, aging, and failure are part of life itself. Because pain feels unfair, the human mind naturally looks for someone to blame. Psychology explains this as a coping response. Blaming a higher power can feel easier than accepting uncertainty or limits. Ancient Indian philosophy does not clearly describe suffering as divine punishment. Instead, many texts speak about impermanence, the simple truth that everything changes. Bodies age, situations shift, and nothing remains the same forever. This is a verifiable idea found in many traditions, not just one. When people say Shiva is the destroyer, it is often misunderstood. Destruction here does not mean cruelty. It means the ending of forms so that new forms can appear. This idea is symbolic and open to interpretation, but it is widely discussed by scholars. Destruction of illusion, not destruction of people, is the key theme. In real life, suffering often brings lessons that comfort alone cannot teach. For example, a person who loses a job may feel punished at first. Over time, that same person may learn new skills, change direction, or gain humility and patience. This does not mean suffering is good or should be praised. It means suffering can carry meaning without being caused by anger. This difference matters. Pain without meaning leads to fear. Pain with understanding leads to strength. Here we must be honest about limits. Not all suffering leads to growth. Some pain is simply painful. Philosophy does not deny this. What it questions is the idea that pain is personal rejection. If Shiva represents balance and truth, then suffering may be part of learning reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This view removes fear without denying pain. If every hardship were punishment, how would growth ever be fair? And if comfort were the only sign of love, how would wisdom develop at all? These questions remain open, quietly guiding us forward, as we prepare to explore how destiny works differently for each person in the next chapter. Many people believe destiny works like a single rule applied equally to all, as if Shiva gives the same results to everyone who faces the same situation. But when we look closely at life, this idea does not match what we see. Two people can face the same problem: illness, loss, poverty, or failure, and yet their paths slowly move in very different directions. This difference does not come from favoritism or rejection. It comes from response. This is a key idea found both in philosophy and in modern behavioral science. From a factual point of view, psychology shows that habits, choices, and reactions strongly influence long-term outcomes. This does not mean effort guarantees success. Many limits exist, such as health, environment, and chance. But research clearly shows that how people respond to difficulty shapes their future options. One person may respond to hardship with learning and adjustment, while another may respond with anger or withdrawal. Over time, these responses create very different lives. Destiny, in this sense, is not a fixed line, but a direction that slowly changes. Ancient philosophy also supports this view. Karma is often misunderstood as reward and punishment, but its core meaning is action and consequence. This is not debated. What is debated is how much freedom exists within those consequences. Most thinkers agree that while not everything is controllable, something always is. This balance matters. If everything were fixed, effort would be meaningless. If everything were free, responsibility would disappear. Destiny sits between these two extremes. Consider health as a simple example. Two people may have the same medical condition. One follows advice, adjusts habits, and stays consistent. The other ignores guidance and hopes fate will change. Their results are rarely the same. This does not mean the first person is loved more by the universe. It means awareness and action changed direction. The same logic applies to learning, relationships, and personal growth. Here, we must be honest and avoid false promises. Effort does not remove pain or guarantee victory, but effort changes dignity, clarity, and direction. If Shiva is seen as a symbol of awareness, then destiny becomes a relationship between conditions and conscious response, not a lottery. This view removes jealousy and fear, replacing them with responsibility. If destiny treated everyone the same, why would learning matter? And if response changes nothing, why do experience and wisdom grow with time? These questions remain open, inviting deeper reflection as we move toward the next part of this journey. There are moments in life when people feel that Shiva has gone silent. Prayers are said, hopes are clear, effort is made, yet nothing seems to change. For many, this silence feels like rejection. This feeling is deeply human, and psychology helps explain it. When people expect a response and receive none, the mind fills the gap with meaning. Often, that meaning becomes personal blame or divine neglect. This reaction is common and understandable, but it does not automatically reflect reality. From a factual point of view, silence is present in many spiritual traditions. Ancient texts rarely describe constant answers or clear signs. Instead, they often describe waiting, uncertainty, and inner struggle. This is not proof that silence has a single meaning. It simply shows that silence is part of the human search for meaning. Modern psychology also supports this idea. Growth in emotional strength often happens when external reassurance is reduced. When answers are not given, people are forced to listen inward, reflect more deeply, and take responsibility for decisions. There is an important difference between dependence and guidance. Dependence seeks constant direction from outside. Guidance develops slowly from understanding and experience. Many people confuse the two. They expect belief to remove doubt, but doubt is often what sharpens clarity. This does not mean silence is always helpful. For some, silence can increase anxiety or sadness. It is important to acknowledge this honestly. Silence is not automatically good or bad. Its effect depends on how it is understood and handled. Here, we must clearly separate fact from interpretation. It is a fact that silence exists in spiritual narratives and human experience. It is an interpretation to say, silence is a test, a lesson, or a sign of care. Many thinkers interpret Shiva symbolically as awareness rather than a voice that speaks. From this view, silence is not absence. It is space. Space allows questions to form, choices to appear, and strength to develop without dependence. Consider times when guidance came not from answers, but from learning through action. When no one tells you what to do, you observe more closely. You become careful. You grow. If every answer were given, would understanding ever deepen? And if silence were always rejection, why does clarity often come after long periods of uncertainty? These questions remain unresolved on purpose. They encourage attention rather than fear. As we move forward, one final idea waits to be explored. What if love itself is not meant to feel comforting all the time? Many people believe that love, especially divine love, should always feel warm, safe, and comforting. When life feels calm, they feel close to Shiva. When life becomes hard or confusing, they feel distant and unloved. This idea is understandable, but it deserves careful thought. In both philosophy and daily life, love does not always appear as comfort. Sometimes it appears as clarity, and clarity can feel uncomfortable. This is a fact we can observe even in human relationships. A parent who corrects a child is not showing hate, but care. Comfort is pleasant, but it does not always lead to growth. Ancient philosophical ideas often point toward awareness rather than emotion. Shiva is frequently interpreted not as a source of constant emotional reassurance, but as a symbol of truth, balance, and clear seeing. This interpretation is not a claim of absolute truth. It is one view shared by many scholars. From this view, love does not remove challenges. It reveals reality. Reality includes limits, responsibility, and change. Avoiding this truth may feel easier, but it often leads to confusion later. In daily life, awareness works quietly. A person who becomes honest with themselves may feel pain when they see their own mistakes. That pain is not punishment. It is information. Psychology supports this idea. Self-awareness often brings short-term discomfort and long-term stability. When people avoid awareness to stay comfortable, problems usually grow. When they face awareness, life slowly becomes clearer, even if not easier. Here it is important to separate fact from interpretation. It is a fact that growth often involves discomfort. It is an interpretation to say that this process is an expression of Shiva's love. Some see it that way, others do not. What matters is the effect. When people act with honesty, restraint, and responsibility, their lives tend to become more stable and meaningful over time. This is not guaranteed happiness, but it is grounded living. If love were meant only to protect, would strength ever develop? And if love always removed pain, would wisdom exist at all? These questions do not demand belief. They invite reflection. Perhaps love is not about feeling held every moment, but about being guided toward truth, even when truth challenges us. As this journey reaches its final pause, one question remains quietly open. If awareness shapes how you live, respond, and choose, then where does love truly begin? Outside you, or within the way you see and act? After exploring these ideas, one thing becomes clear. Life is not a simple story of reward and punishment, and love is not always about comfort. Shiva, whether seen as a deity or a symbol, represents awareness, balance, and truth, rather than selective favor. Destiny is not a fixed line that makes effort meaningless. Facts from ancient philosophy and psychology show that choices, habits, and awareness all shape how life unfolds. While circumstances and limits exist, how we respond to them matters a great deal. This is not always easy to see, and it is okay to feel unsure. Even the texts themselves describe learning as a slow process that requires reflection, patience, and responsibility. Love is also deeper than comfort. It can appear as guidance, challenge, or truth rather than warmth. Understanding this is supported both by symbolic interpretations in philosophy and by observations in human life. When people face hardship or silence, they are not necessarily abandoned. These experiences can push growth, clarity, and resilience. Psychology confirms that self-awareness and facing challenges builds strength, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Recognizing this allows us to act consciously, make better choices, and live with more meaning. It is also important to separate fact from interpretation. Facts tell us that effort, discipline, and moral action affect outcomes and personal growth. Interpretations about Shiva's love or the meaning of destiny are philosophical, symbolic, and open to personal reflection. This honesty does not weaken the message, it strengthens it by making the ideas practical for daily life. We are invited to take responsibility, to face reality with awareness, and to use life's challenges as opportunities to grow rather than as proof of rejection. So, the journey of understanding, love, destiny, and awareness is ongoing. We may never have all the answers, but by observing reality, making conscious choices, and reflecting on our experiences, we can live in a way that is stronger, calmer, and more meaningful. The questions remain, but they guide us toward a deeper understanding of life, responsibility, and the kind of love that grows not from comfort, but from truth.